11 o'clock right now. I got 15 seconds. That's it. Just don't tell me it's a video.
Recording in progress.
Well, good morning and welcome to the TechnologySource Virtual Roundtable. My name is Rob Olson. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of TechnologySource. A little bit about our company, if you're not familiar with who we are or what we do. TechnologySource is a solution partner that builds unique best-in-breed solutions for our trusted advisors and their clients. By leveraging a network of over 500 providers in managed IT, cybersecurity, telecom, mobility, AI, and analytics, we design solutions tailored to reduce operational expenses, improve efficiencies, and transform the customer experience. Our focus is creating solutions as unique as the challenges our clients face. The virtual roundtable is something we do each and every month. We highlight one of our curated and highly differentiated solutions that our trusted advisors and their clients have found extremely valuable. This month is no different, as we will be discussing a unique service offering referred to as AI verified penetration testing. Passpoint Security is our guest today. I'll tell you a little bit about Passpoint. They're a trusted partner in cybersecurity and business continuity, helping organizations protect their most critical assets. With decades of combined experience, Passpoint offers tailored solutions including AI-verified penetration testing, ransomware impact analysis, vulnerability assessments, phishing simulations, and dark web monitoring, all with budget-friendly monthly billing. Passpoint's innovative products and client-focused approach combines practical security strategies. All right, it's messed up here. I'm so sorry, guys. With compliance and risk management to keep organizations secure and resilient. Today, our expert will welcome Wade Tucker, CISO of Passpoint Security. Wade, welcome to the virtual roundtable. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate you having me. Looking forward to the opportunity to chat with you and the team. It's always great to be here.
Well, hopefully I did your company justice in the introduction. I think one of the reasons why we're so fond of what Passpoint does is the world of cybersecurity has gotten very transactional. There's about 250 companies in the space, and they all seem to be reselling somebody else's platform. And what Passpoint brings to the market is something very, very unique with your AI verified penetration testing.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's you couldn't hit the nail more on the head, right? We see it all the time. We're talking with organizations on a daily basis, and there are a lot of middlemen, right? You know, that they're buying products and then either trying to rebrand them or resell them, and just a lot of that going on in the market right now. But you know, one thing that does separate us is the fact that we are the source. We perform all the tests, all the services that we offer outside of a few things are all done, by Passpoint people, with our processes and our own, special sauce kind of, all layered on top. So, yeah, we're pretty excited about, the market, where it's going, our position in the market, the unique services that we bring, the differentiation. You talked a little bit about the pricing model, so really excited that, the differentiation that we bring to the table, and looking forward to talking a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so one of the questions I have for you is how does AI verified penetration testing as a service differ from traditional penetration testings, and what advantages does that offer?
Sure. So the threat landscape, as you guys are all aware, has changed significantly in the past 3 to 5 years. Okay, onset of artificial intelligence, the launch of ChatGPT, and this whole AI craze that's been going on. You see it in the stock market every time you turn on CNBC. They're talking about an AI bubble or AI this or AI that, right? So this AI craze has been going on, been fueled by a lot of um, efficiency building and a lot of force multiplication capabilities that are now easily leveraged by anyone who can build these LLMs or GPT style technologies. So the threat landscape, has adapted to these changes, just like corporate America has adapted to these changes, and all of that efficiency building and force multiplication is now being leveraged by bad guys in hacking attempts. And what used to take hours and days literally takes seconds. And so, what we're doing here at Passpoint is we're trying to fight fire with fire. Okay. We know that the enemy and the bad guys out there are leveraging LLMs, and they can train these things to be, super hacking assistants and data repositories for folks to be able to prompt for information at the exact moment in time they need it. And we're doing the same thing here at Passpoint. We've built our own tool. We're training that tool constantly with all the latest and greatest information so that our testers have access to that knowledge base and all that information at the exact moment in time that they need it. So, your
Mhm.
question is, how is this changing, the pen testing arena? It's creating many more efficiencies from a human-led penetration testing perspective, but it's still offering that human penetration testing touch that everybody wants. And why do people want human-led penetration testing? Because that's how hacking is actually done. You get hacked by a person,
Yeah.
right? You don't get hacked by a technology. It's a person aided by technology. So what we really want to do here at Passpoint is mimic that exact same threat landscape and those tactics, techniques, and procedures, and then perform that for our customers to ensure that they feel confident and comfortable with their organization can stand up against a real world threat that absolutely is leveraging artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the latest data is pretty eye-opening. So by mid-year of 2025, there was 23,667 new common vulnerabilities and exposures published. 38% of those were classified as high or critical severity. Are we at the point where human-only penetration testing is obsolete? I mean, can humans keep up with that volume of vulnerabilities that are hitting us now?
Yeah, so we are a big proponent of security in depth, okay? Where, it's not about just doing a penetration test, okay? And, here at Passpoint, we offer a lot of different services. We don't just do penetration testing. That's a spoke in a lot larger wheel of security, okay? So absolutely, you should be doing penetration testing, and human-led penetration testing, I don't believe is in anywhere close to obsolete. I think it mimics exactly what we see happening out there in the threat landscape. But what organizations should be doing is not solely dependent their entire security strategy on penetration testing, but also layering in vulnerability scanning, endpoint detection and response, SIM services, so you got proactive vulnerability identification. If that fails and they get in, you've got reactive, things that are monitoring the network and reacting to those stimuluses that may occur. And putting all that together into a cohesive security strategy is what we do here at Passpoint, and that's what organizations should be doing to protect themselves. Because you're right, you know, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of threats are coming out. A lot of vulnerabilities are coming out. Like you said, there 38% of them are classified as high or critical,
Mhm.
right? So you've got pretty big deals that are occurring. These aren't just informational and low threats. These are one third of them, over one third of them are criticals and highs. So you got to take this threat seriously. security in depth is the answer. Okay. There is no one true answer, which is why our whole PTAS piece, is so important, because you can pick and choose services that best fill your organizational gaps and only pay for those services that you need versus, some of our competitors bringing everything in, bundling it together and trying to force feed a solution or security set on a customer. It just, companies end up paying, more for things that they don't really need. So yeah, I think that human penetration testing isn't even close to being obsolete. I think it's absolutely a necessity for every single organization out there. It mimics exactly what's happening, out there in the threat landscape. But I do think that what we're doing at Passpoint with our human-led penetration testing, by aiding them with artificial intelligence, creates some of those efficiencies, makes them more effective, more robust, more comprehensive, and leaves the customer in a better position.
No, no, great point. So we've talked about AI a little bit, but how has the use of AI impacted cybersecurity threat growth?
What was the question?
How has the use of AI by hackers impacted the growth of cybersecurity threats?
It's right at your fingertips. Okay. So when you look at, a lot of the generative AI stuff that's out there, okay, the chat GPTs of the world, and just look at what those efficiencies, those tools have brought to organizations, okay, where they're building their own custom tools right now to help in the sales process, and they can take all of these different SKUs that they have that no human would ever be able to know, right? And then, disseminate that information into a call center. So when someone calls in, they say, "Hey, I've got a question about, XYZ part." Person has no clue what's going on, right? Has no idea what that person's even talking about. Now today, because of these technologies, they can go ahead and prompt that information, or may even do it through voice recognition, be able to pull that part up, have all the information right there on it, pricing, all this sort of stuff right there at their fingertips at the exact moment in time that they need it. Same thing's happening out there with artificial intelligence on the bad side, right? You can license technologies off the dark web, just like these companies are buying and building their own, artificial intelligence solutions for themselves. The hackers can license these technologies that are built to be super hacking assistants. So the days of having to understand code to create exploit code for a particular vulnerability is almost a thing of the past, right? You can prompt these things for exploit code. They can actually create malware specimens for you. They can do all of these things in a matter of seconds. Prior to these technologies being available, either you had to know that through experience, or if you didn't, you had to go spend days, weeks, months trying to research for that information, out there on the dark web, to see if there's a vulnerability that's actually out there in the wild and available, right? So these tools bring all this information to organizations, bad organizations, right at the moment in time that they need it. So what's this doing to the cybersecurity threat landscape? I mean, it's significantly accelerating, that threat landscape, and people's abilities to be able to be much more effective, and efficient than ever before.
It's a scary thing. There was a recent survey in 2023 that found that 85% of cybersecurity leaders saw recent attacks that they believed were powered by generative AI. 60% of cybersecurity groups said to be using generative AI tools in their operations. And
Oh
Gartner
yeah.
predicts by 2027, 17% of all cyber attacks will involve generative AI in their execution or exploitation.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah,
here.
it's absolutely supporting everything that we just said. Okay. And just, you got to keep in mind, we're only in the first inning. I don't even think we're in the second out of the first inning, right? We're
Right.
still playing in the
Getting
first
there.
inning, right? The first inning isn't even over yet. These things just came out, right? You know, they're going to become way more, focused. There's going to be more of them. Just imagine when, faster chips and, better computing capabilities are available. These folks are going to have access to those types of things that were never available before, and it's just going to continue to increase. So I absolutely think that these numbers are 100% valid, and the predictions are absolutely in line. If I think they may even be a little bit conservative, right? 17% of cyber attacks would involve generative AI, and in 2027, I think in 2 years we're going to see a lot more than that because these tools are going to become just that much more readily available. Folks are going to become more educated on how to train them, build them themselves. I think that number is going to be double that.
That's a scary thought. How does the integration of AI in your penetration testing impact the speed of vulnerability, identification, prioritization, and reporting?
Yep. Just the same way a college student these days writes a term paper, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you know, 10 years ago, you had to go to the library or get on the internet or a combination of both and, pulling all this information together and all that type of thing, right? So when we're doing penetration testing, our testers will have to do that same process. Okay, so they find a vulnerability. If they don't know if that vulnerability is exploitable, they have to go research that information. Okay, they have to look for that exploit to see if it's known in the wild. To your point, I mean, there's new vulnerabilities and new exploits coming out every single day, impossible for a human to keep up just with their mind alone. Okay, you talk about you know, uh, prioritization, you talk about report building, all of this stuff has been, kind of a manual process. Now you bring on artificial intelligence, right? And you can train these tools to be these super hacking assistants. So all of this information that was once you had to go spend cycles on trying to identify what that information was and find it and all that type of stuff. Is it valid? All these different types of things can all be streamlined, through these technologies. Report building, we can take some of these findings, scrub them, put them into an AI tool and say, hey, look, based on this information, can you build me, a 90-day remediation plan? And boom, it'll kick that stuff out for you literally in seconds, you know. So, it's definitely a big time efficiency builder, which is another reason why organizations should be focusing on the human-led penetration testing portion because, they can be done a little bit faster now, leveraging these technologies. They can be more robust, because we're not just relying on that human, brain really to be
Right.
the data center for all of the information supporting the efficacy of the test itself. It's now being aided by artificial intelligence. So it's on steroids, right? So it's just that much faster, just that much better, just that much more comprehensive, that much more detailed. So I think it's impacted it in great ways, to create those efficiencies.
No, it's a definitely a game-changing product that you brought to the market, and we're big fans of it. Here's something that's kind of interesting. 32% of organizations conduct annual penetration tests, way
Yeah.
below what I would expect. How often should businesses complete a penetration test? Is there a value to completing the tests more frequently, such as biannually or even quarterly?
Yep. Look, I think it all comes down to cost. 32% doing penetration testing is absolutely unacceptable, rate. I mean, that's an F in any grade level, right? That needs to be more like 80 to 90% of organizations should be doing penetration testing. In my opinion, it should be the center keystone for any cybersecurity program, should be penetration testing because there's so many ancillary benefits to penetration testing outside of just vulnerability identification and, is it exploitable and all of that type of stuff, right? When you do these penetration tests, you're going to be testing the efficacy of a lot of these tools and systems and processes that you put in place to see, hey, how do these things work? So, there's been times where we'll do penetration testing on organizations that have very sophisticated endpoint detection solutions in place. They're misconfigured. They don't see that we're there. Okay, we're able to bypass those and in some cases gain, domain admin access, right? So, you know, what a great piece of information to know. That wasn't, yeah, that's a vulnerability in your system, but it's not a vulnerability on a device that would, it's a vulnerability in the delivery of a product that you purchased, right? But that was validated through penetration testing. Okay. Also, if you have a SOC or something of that nature, right? You maybe you want to test their response time. So don't tell them you're doing this test, start hacking away and see what happens. And if they don't call you in an hour, you're like, what's going on here, right? So, penetration testing should absolutely be something that 100% of all companies out there should be implementing it, right? And you talked about frequency, you know, when you look at all the industry frameworks, NIST, you look at, CIS, you look at all of these frameworks that organizations have spent decades fine-tuning to um, give organizations a guiding light into, what is a good security strategy, okay? And we get asked this question all the time, like, hey, can you help us, implement a security strategy? Absolutely, we can. What framework do you want to follow? Okay. So these are things where experts have spent decades researching, analyzing, what things should be in place, frequencies. And when you look at a lot of these frameworks, they say that penetration testing on an annual basis is a good cadence. Okay. Now, I understand money doesn't grow on trees. Would it be nice to do something like that every 6 months? Yeah, I think there could be some benefit there. I think there is a point of diminishing returns for organizations because typically organizations are bound by capacity, right? So if you're constantly getting feedback that, hey, you need to update this, you need to change this, how quickly can you make those changes before doing the next test actually is a benefit, okay? And so I think that you do need to space them out. You can implement some vulnerability scanning, some more cost-effective things, some automated, tools like that to do some things in between those human-led penetration tests to kind of just validate some remediation and kind of get a little bit of feedback. But I think that, once a year is adequate. If you could do it twice a year, I think that would be fantastic, but, it's not a regulatory requirement.
How can AI verified penetration testing help reduce the financial and operational impacts of a data breach?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of ways it can do that, right? So the financial impact, let's talk a little bit about that. Operational downtime,
Mhm.
loss of customers, if you were to get breached, obviously that's not a good look. And depending on how big you are, that may make the news, that may not make the news. I mean, there's a reputational damage. Stock prices could go down, I mean, if you're publicly traded. So, penetration testing is required in a lot of verticals, okay, and is even by insurance companies, right? To even get cyber insurance, right? You have to do penetration testing. Why? Is because it's a significant risk reducer, okay? If you're doing these types of things, which, I call just table stakes of cybersecurity, that the likelihood of you getting hit within a breach is significantly reduced. The likelihood of you getting hit by a significant breach, is also reduced, right? So you may get breached or there may be something happen, but if you have that security in depth structure in place where you've got penetration testing, you're fixing some of these holes, you're doing some things like that, there still may be somebody who gets through. You have some other solutions behind there like SOC and MDR solutions that help you, quarantine and eradicate some of those threats that may slip through. the likelihood of you getting hit with a breach is significantly reduced. The likelihood of you getting hit by a large breach is significantly reduced, right? So, that is absolutely going to reduce the impact and size and likelihood of a breach and the financial impact. Operational, pretty simple. If you can't get to the internet, you might as well just send people home these days, right? There's not a business in the world operationally that does not function, or one of the, basically the spine
Sure.
of the business, the whole thing runs off of uh, the internet or IT, right? You take IT out of a business, good luck, right? So I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? But implementing these things definitely reduces the risk. It's identifying proactively vulnerabilities, it's fixing them before they're exploited, covering and patching those holes, and then building a strategy that should something get in, or should one of these vulnerabilities that pop up every single day we weren't able to get to, it happens, that you have a safety net there back there to assist you in eradicating that threat. That's what organizations should be doing.
Yeah, just to support what you just said, Forbes claims that 67% of small and mid-sized organizations go out of business within 6 months of a cyber attack. And that's not surprising, as the average cost of a cyber attack is now 4.4 million. And that doesn't take into account the things you mentioned, the brand and reputation damage that occurs. There's no real way to measure that.
Mm-hmm.
So the damage can become immeasurable.
Mm-hmm.
What role does AI verified penetration testing play in helping organizations meet regulatory and compliance requirements?
Sure. So penetration testing in general, right, is required by a lot of verticals out there to complete on an annual basis. Okay. If you are a bank or a credit union, if you are a automobile dealership, right, through the FTC security rule that's out there for people doing tax prep, and accounting firms, and all these organizations now that are considered financial institutions are required to do penetration testing every year, right? Healthcare organizations, should be doing penetration testing. Obviously, you're processing credit cards. You got to do external, scanning and testing of your networks for PCI compliance, right? So, penetration testing in general is going to help you meet all of those regulatory compliance guidelines. The AI aspect, the AI verified portion of penetration testing is just something to help create more efficiencies, make it more effective, make it more robust and comprehensive than a standard penetration test, right? So, it's just a better way of doing it, right? Than just relying on an individual's knowledge base and experience level to deliver a quality deliverable to the customer. Why not leverage the technologies that hackers are doing and leveraging? If they're leveraging it for a reason, right? That's the efficiencies. Why are companies implementing all these AI tools? Efficiencies, right? Same thing that we should be doing from a security perspective, is implementing these tools just to level the playing field, from a threat landscape perspective, and also, benefit from those efficiencies and more robust tests that we can deliver to our customers.
Yeah, Wade, it's rare that we come across unique or highly differentiated services in cybersecurity. I think there's 250 different cybersecurity companies in the US, and most experts will agree that most of what they're selling is resold services from somebody else. Passpoint really stands out to me because you offer two unique services, the penetration testing as a service, PTAS, and ransomware impact analysis. Tell us a little about RIA and why business owners should consider this service in addition to the penetration testing as a service.
Sure. So penetration testing and ransomware impact analysis, we talked about that defense in depth, type of scenario, right? I get it. Money doesn't grow on trees. You can't do everything, right? But These are two very complementary services. Both of them are proprietary Passpoint offerings, right? The first one, PTAS, penetration testing as a service, that's a custom built solution for every single one of our customers. Obviously, includes penetration testing, but it can include any other service that we offer, including a ransomware impact analysis. And then what we do is we set that up for our customers into a sequence in which we deliver those services over given amounts of time, to meet regulatory compliance guidelines and things of that nature. Ransomware impact analysis is powered by a proprietary technology we built called Cymrix that enables organizations to run various ransomware attacks against themselves, leveraging de-weaponized malware specimens that are created within this technology. Okay. And we can do this in production in real time. So organizations now can test their organizational controls just as if they were being attacked by a ransomware to see should those organizational controls that they have in place stand up to those types of an attacks. Do they operate as advertised, or do they completely flop, right? A lot of people trust but never verify that these solutions are working and working as they should be. RIA is that verification process. Okay, you buy these technologies, you should be validating and verifying periodically throughout the year that they actually work. And that's what that ransomware impact analysis does.
Yeah, when the MGM attack happened in 2024, I don't think anybody was expecting it to propagate throughout the resort like it did. Everything from casino machines to guest cards for the rooms, billing, rewards information, everything was knocked offline. It wasn't just one aspect of the business. That ransomware attack propagated throughout all their systems and knocked out multiple things that I don't really know how the organization functioned at that point, but
Mhm.
tell us about how you identify, what that propagation would look like. I think that's an
Yep.
interesting part of what Cymrix does.
Yeah. So in that ransomware impact analysis, we run, three separate tests, and in those different types of tests that we run, 0-day attacks, escalated privileges attacks, and then what we just call no knowledge, or basically a standard, attack, right? Without any, assistance. Um, what we do is when we do these attacks, it's as if you were being hit with ransomware. So this agent that we deploy on your network in production in real time acts as a true ransomware specimen without the teeth. Okay, so it's going to try to live off the land. It's going to try to laterally move throughout the network. It's going to try to consume information and then leverage that information then to escalate itself and, move itself up the chain to try to, gain access to other areas of the network. And so it's going to move all the same tactics, techniques, and procedures that are leveraged in real ransomware are being leveraged by this agent that we deploy. So you're going to see exactly how a ransomware attack would spread throughout or propagate throughout your organization, right? And so that's one of the big benefits of doing this is to see what a ransomware attack would look like. And then you can go back and prior to actually being hit with a real ransomware attack, have the time to be able to potentially reorg your network or implement other strategies that could limit that impact, right? As well as validate, some of the tools that you currently have in place to ensure that those things are working and working at optimum level.
Yeah, the AI verified penetration testing and the ransomware impact analysis are truly the stars of the cybersecurity product set at Passpoint. But there are more. Can you provide a brief overview of the other services that you've brought to market?
Yeah. So, really when we get down to people ask us all the time, who are you and what do you do? Okay. We are a full stack compliance organization. Okay. Obviously, we talked about penetration testing and ransomware simulations and things of that nature, right? But we have a full consulting arm. So let's say people need to have policies created. They need a business continuity plan. They need a disaster recovery plan, cyber incident response plan. They want to do some sort of risk assessment or gap assessment. They want to do tabletop exercises. All these different types of services we can bring to the table as well. Okay. Those are very critical pieces of the puzzle when you look at risk reduction, you look at compliance, that type of stuff. These are things that have to be done alongside penetration testing and those types of things. We've got 24 by 7, 365 SOC services,
Hmm.
EDR services, SIEM services. So there's tons of things that we offer. We do, you know, uh, config assessments on O365, um, you know, cloud assessments on Oracle, Azure, AWS, right? So, I mean, we could sit here almost and talk for an hour
Right.
just on the services that we offer, but I mean, it's a ton of different things that we bring to the table, which is very, very beneficial to our customers because they don't have to go find individual partners and organizations to deliver just one or two things to them. They can come to PassPoint and we can streamline that process and bring all these services to the table for them, making them way more efficient and effective. And on top of that, too, as well, significantly minimize the vendor ecosystem that they have to manage internally, right?
Full creep.
Yeah, yeah. So, minimize the number of contracts, minimize the number of kickoff calls, minimize the number of of points of contact within the business, right? And in doing that and streamlining that process, it saves you a lot of time. And we talk to organizations that they just die under the vendor ecosystem weight within their business. They don't have the people and the time to manage that ecosystem. Well, let us reduce that for you.
Well, we've discussed your unique approach to penetration testing and ransomware impact analysis, but PassPoint has another unique solution we haven't discussed yet, and that's your custom services sequence.
Mhm.
Can you explain that concept of that and the benefits of your approach?
Sure. We have heard since the very beginning that people love our flexibility. Okay. And so when you talk about custom services sequence, the one word that we like to really focus on is custom. Okay.
Right.
Cybersecurity means so much to so many different people. Okay. It's kind of like walking into an ice cream store, right? You get 50 flavors and 25 different toppings. You send 15 different people in there, they're going to come out with 15 different cups of ice cream with different toppings and everything else, right? Different strokes for different folks. Okay. Once you understand that and you start to understand the fact that there's different needs that each organization has, this custom services sequence fits perfectly within that narrative. Because what we're doing here at PassPoint is not force feeding our customers to buy a bundle of services that we have prescribed to the industry that we think is what the industry needs. Okay. We got enough people trying to tell everybody what to do. Okay. But when you look at all the breaches and all the data that we're looking at, it doesn't look like any of what they're saying is working too well, right? So what we want to do is we want to be flexible enough to fit the needs of each one of the businesses to fill only the needs that they feel that they need filled. What does that do? It gives them control over the bundle that they purchase, the custom services sequence, and it also gives them control over the most important part of the conversation, which is cost. Okay. We don't want you to buy 7 services and only see value out of 2 or 3 because we sell them in this, gold package or platinum, whatever you want to call it. Okay. What we want to do is we want organizations to come in. We want to have a consultative conversation with these folks, understand their true needs for their business, and say, hey, look, here's all the things that we can do. Here's the 3 or 4 things based on our conversation I think would be beneficial to you. You let me know if those are going to be great fits. If they are, fantastic. If they're not, you let me know what you think that you need. And then what we'll do is we'll put those into this custom services sequence, which basically lays out when those services will be delivered throughout the year to the customer. Okay. Now they've outsourced that to us. They get their own dedicated project manager that then drives that services sequence for them. So now not only do they not have to deal with all these different vendors, all these different points of contacts, all these different contracts, they got one person they deal with. They've already got their year. We actually go up to 5 year, sequences. So year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they have their entire sequence built out. They know exactly when those services are going to happen. Okay. They can forget about it and go do something else. So it takes everything completely off their plate. So the custom services sequence is huge for us. It's a massive differentiator. It gives the customer control of the services that best fit their organizational need and gives them control over cost.
Well, great information. I know we've asked a lot of you. You've given us almost an hour of your time. So thanks for joining. You're always a great guest. We're glad you're here. And if anyone is interested in meeting with the PassPoint team and discussing some of their cybersecurity challenges and getting some unique solutions to those challenges, please reach out to us at info@technologysource.com, info@technologysource.com, and we will arrange a meeting with the experts at PassPoint. So thanks for joining us at our virtual roundtable. We'll meet you next month in January as we continue to discuss unique solutions to some of your most difficult problems. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Have a good one. All right.
Recording stopped.